This week on Ride On, Alain Ducadigny fulfills a lifetime's dream and flies solo in a Spitfire. One way to squeeze through traffic, Mark Walton uncovers the strange history of the bubble car. But first, does your car really have to end up in the scrap heap after an average 12 years? Now just imagine when you bought a new house, you knew that in its first year of life it would lose 25% of its value. Well, you don't have to imagine that. In fact, it happened to a lot of people at the end of the 80s. It was called negative equity and it caused a great deal of distress. But strangely, when it comes to buying our second biggest lifetime purchase, a new car, it doesn't seem to bother anybody that in its first year of life it will massively depreciate. Are we mad or what? Well, let's just put it into perspective. For instance, this is the Vauxhall Omega, and after 1 year it will have lost in value nearly £7,000. This is an expensive car, but even in cheaper cars the depreciation is still huge. For instance, take a Fiat Cinquecento. 1 year down and it's lost £1,663. Now there are some people who think we should treat our cars more like our houses. For instance, if the roof leaks or the boiler breaks down, you don't demolish the house, you fix it. Modern cars have a designed-in lifespan of about 10 to 12 years, after which they end up here on the scrap heap. The whole purchase price, thousands of pounds, just disappears. The alternative is the idea of a durable car, one that can be continuously overhauled and renovated, retaining its value indefinitely. But tempting as it sounds, does it stand up to ride-on scrutiny? And what is a durable car?
A durable car is one that will last indefinitely. It's one that can be repaired cheaply, and one that I suppose was worth the same in the future as what you originally paid for it.
This is Charles Ware, who's built up a £1.75 million business based on his idea of the durable car. He hates the whole notion of predetermining the lifespan of a car.
The real problem is that fashion has been artificially speeded up by manufacturers who've got to go on replacing what they've sold in order to keep going. With my sort of idea of durable car ownership, you can start with an £800 banger that works and then gradually improve it in the same way that you might buy an old house and eventually put the Aga in or something, or whatever it is.
You see, my first car was a Fiat 500, you know, the old one, the original one.
Dear little thing.
Very dear little thing, but I would be pretty depressed if I was still driving it.
Yes, I know, but you know, this idea of durability and so on is not necessarily that you've got to drive one car for 40 years. But if there was a selection of durable cars from the equivalent of a Mercedes S-Class downwards, then people would have a choice of moving from one durable car to another.
At his factory in Bath, Charles overhauls or services between 700 to 800 durable cars a year. To test his ideas, he needed a car which was suitable for continuous overhaul and repair. The way that Morris Minors were put together back in the 50s makes them ideal. Charles's problem with modern cars is that they're full of sealed-for-life parts like suspension components and electronic engine management systems. When these parts go wrong, they can't be pulled apart and fixed. They have to be thrown out and replaced with a whole new unit. Let's have a look at it in detail. I mean, this is the car that you're sort of advocating as a good example of durability and the kind of car, basically, you'd like to see everybody adopt, every manufacturer.
The car is sort of built like the Forth Bridge rather than the Severn Bridge, so that you can actually replace relatively localized sections. In the same way, the wings are bolted on, the boot lid's bolted on, the doors are bolted on, everything can be taken off and individually replaced.
Modern car body shells are built to remain in one piece. It's called unitary construction. The steel is thin, and making effective repairs on an elderly body shell is complicated and expensive. Charles has been verifying his theory by keeping logs of his company's Morris Minors using his planned maintenance scheme. And so far, he contests, his figures support his argument. Now, Charles's plan is that we constantly maintain and overhaul our vehicles, giving them a life of about 30 to 40 years. And obviously the idea of saving tens of thousands of pounds is an attractive one. But the big question is, will it work? Well, on the plus side, it has been tried before, but not on cars, on buses. Because the London Routemaster double-decker is nearly 38 years old, and it's been operated in almost exactly that way.
Every standard bus comes into the largest public service vehicle overhaul factory in the world.
This is exactly the sort of factory Charles would love to see processing durable cars. The whole place was designed to rebuild one type of bus, and the bus itself was constructed from the outset for this system. Everything could be removed and renovated, from the body panels to the mirrors, even the seats.
In the trimming shop, labour, materials and tools are so provided that the squabs and cushions that came sliding out of buses the week before last are being made ready to be fitted back on Friday next.
Of course, this sort of mass reproduction is very labour-intensive, but that suits Charles down to the ground. He believes the durable car could encourage the sort of manual engineering skills that don't need a deep love of computer diagnostics. This may all sound like some sort of cottage industry, but at its peak, one bus was coming out of this factory every hour, and they're still going 40 years later. So, according to Charles, there could be a car for everyone that would cost less and that would last forever. Sounds too good to be true? Well, it is. One of the top experts on car industry economics disagrees fundamentally with Charles.
If people wanted one car throughout their lives, the Charles Ware approach, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what people want. But nevertheless, they would have to recognise that there's nothing in life which is entirely costless or free. It would mean that there would be far fewer cars made in the car factories. Therefore, you would have a fewer number of car makers. You might not be able to get to anything like the levels of production that the present car maker has. It would mean there would be fewer jobs in the industry. There'd be fewer knock-on effects into the steel industry, into the rubber industry, into the industries making the components. If those people didn't have jobs, they wouldn't go into the supermarkets, so therefore you wouldn't have jobs in Tesco's, and Tesco's wouldn't be selling the chocolates that Cadbury's were making. So those implications would have to be taken on board.
Well, you could argue then that depreciation is all part of a wicked capitalist plot to bolster the Western economy. Or in fact, maybe the economics work in our favour. After all, high turnover means lower prices, making new state-of-the-art cars more affordable to more people. Because there is in fact already a small-scale durable car company in existence. Its cars are easy to maintain, to pull apart and put back together again, and 70% of all the vehicles it's ever made are still on the road. Rush out and buy one while you can. Talk to your dealer about 0% finance.